Have you ever noticed that some people don't break when they are betrayed? They go silent. It's not sudden coldness. It's not apathy. It's something far deeper and more unsettling. It's the day the empath decides, consciously or not, that they will no longer abandon themselves to keep others comfortable. And when that happens, something changes permanently. The most frightening part is that there is no scandal, no shouting, no long explanations trying to save what was already collapsing. There is an inner withdrawal, almost imperceptible to those who aren't paying attention. The empath doesn't make a scene. They simply stop offering unlimited access to their own energy. And that makes them untouchable. If you have ever been called too sensitive, too emotional, too intense, yet deep down always knew you see things no one else notices, maybe this story touches something very familiar. Maybe you were never weak. Maybe you were always too aware for a world that prefers not to look that deeply. This was exactly the pattern Jung began to observe in his clinical studies. Highly sensitive people who seemed overwhelmed, exhausted, almost on the verge of emotional collapse. But when he listened carefully, he noticed something different. They were not fragile. They were the ones holding everyone else's pain together. These individuals became the safe harbor of the family, the relationship, the group of friends. They were the ones calming conflicts, absorbing tensions, offering endless understanding. And almost no one asked who was taking care of them, who was supporting the one who was always silently supporting everyone else. Behind the constant kindness, there was something few suspected. They were observing everything. Every shift in behavior, every inconsistency, every repeated apology. Jung described this as a powerful inner tension, feeling too much, perceiving too much, and still trying to maintain harmony at any cost. This tension does not disappear on its own. It accumulates, because perceiving something and silencing that perception creates a deep inner conflict. The empath knows when something is wrong, yet chooses to preserve the bond. And the more they preserve it, the more they distance themselves from who they are. Until the inevitable moment arrives that accelerates everything: betrayal. That is the day we are talking about today. The day the empath does not break, but awakens. If this kind of reflection resonates with you, take a moment to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and turn on notifications, because here we explore the deepest layers of the human mind. Now, take a deep breath, because what Jung discovered about this moment is more disturbing than it seems. There is a dangerous idea that has been repeated so many times, it eventually became accepted as truth. That the empath is weak, too sensitive, too emotional, too unstable. But what almost no one realizes is that while everyone saw fragility, something far more complex was happening inside. The empath was not broken. He was holding a weight no one else could see. The empath walks into a room and feels the atmosphere before anyone says a word. He notices the tension hidden behind a forced smile, the subtle shift in someone's tone of voice, the charged silence between two people pretending everything is fine. While others talk casually, he has already sensed what is misaligned. And that switch never turns off. He doesn't just feel, he absorbs. He absorbs his mother's anxiety, his partner's frustration, his friend's insecurity, his co-worker's instability. Like an emotional lightning rod, he takes the impact so others don't have to deal with it. And he does this without realizing that little by little, he is becoming overloaded. Over time, he begins to confuse kindness with sacrifice. He believes that being a good person means enduring more, understanding more, giving in more. If there is conflict, he mediates. If there is a crisis, he resolves it. If someone explodes, he empathizes. The pattern forms silently. The more he tummles, the more others expect him to. To an outside observer, it looks like fragility. It looks like a lack of boundaries. But in reality, it is extreme awareness. The empath reads micro-expressions like an open book. He detects inconsistencies between words and actions. He notices when something shifts in someone's eyes. He is not naive. He is constantly processing emotional data. It is precisely this ability that attracts manipulators. People who operate through guilt, blame shifting, and emotional games quickly recognize who is willing to understand instead of confront. The empath tries to comprehend the pain behind toxic behavior. He searches for explanations to justify the unjustifiable. And while he tries to understand, he also forgives. And while he forgives, he stays. And while he stays, he keeps absorbing. The manipulator learns there will always be one more chance, one more conversation, one more attempt at reconciliation. The empath believes that if he loves enough, the person will change. But there is something no one sees. Every inconsistency is registered. Every repeated apology is noted. Every recurring cycle does not go unnoticed. The empath may pretend to accept the explanations, but inside he knows when something doesn't add up. He feels when the story doesn't make sense. What looks like infinite tolerance is, in truth, silent endurance. He is holding the anger that could explode. He is holding the disappointment that could sever bonds. He is holding the truth that could shatter the image he still wants to preserve. And holding requires strength, a great deal of strength. Most people never realize how much the empath has already seen. Because he doesn't announce it. He doesn't accuse. He doesn't confront immediately. He observes. He analyzes. He compares patterns. He gives the benefit of the doubt. What others call weakness is actually a mind constantly mapping human behavior. But there is a limit to what can be sustained. There comes a point when the accumulated weight begins to press from within. And the more the empath holds, the more he stores. Silence does not mean lack of awareness. It means something is being archived, layer by layer. And this is exactly where the part few imagine begins. Because behind the kindness, there is something almost no one suspects. A silent archive being built. A detailed record of patterns, cycles, and unspoken truths. And when that archive stops being ignored, everything changes. It was at this point that Jung began to notice something that deeply unsettled him. Those patients who seemed too fragile to handle confrontation were not inattentive. Quite the opposite. They described behaviors with almost clinical precision. They remembered dates, exact phrases, subtle shifts in posture. It was not confused emotional memory. It was detailed record-keeping. While everyone believed the empath was simply suffering, Jung noticed that he was observing. Every broken promise was stored. Every repeated apology followed a recognizable pattern. Every cycle of closeness and distance formed a predictable sequence. Nothing was truly forgotten, only silenced in the name of hope. What was most disturbing was not the ability to remember, but the ability to map. The empath knew exactly how someone behaved when they wanted to manipulate, when they wanted to shift blame, when they pretended fragility to avoid responsibility. He saw the entire script, even when he still chose not to confront it. Inside, there was what we could call an invisible archive. A mental space where patterns were organized with impressive clarity. The empath could predict when the next crisis would emerge, when the next lie would be told, when the next dramatic plea would appear. And he was almost always right. But here is the detail that unsettled Jung the most. They rarely used this information. Even knowing how the game worked, they continued playing as if they didn't. Not out of naivety, but by choice. They still believed the person might act differently next time. That hope created a profound inner conflict. On one side, clear perception. On the other, the desire to believe. The empath saw the cracks in the story, but he also saw the pain behind the behavior. And so he chose to understand instead of confront. He chose to wait instead of expose. Jung began to realize that this was not passivity, it was restraint. The empath was holding information that could dismantle any manipulative narrative. He knew the other person's insecurities, their hidden fears, their most vulnerable contradictions. Imagine someone who knows exactly the emotional weak points of the person who hurts them, yet decides not to press them. That is not weakness. It is self-control. It is a strength that prefers preserving the relationship over winning the dispute. But each silent choice adds another page to the archive. Over time, that archive stops being just memory. It becomes accumulated awareness. The empath begins to see patterns not only in one person, but in many. He recognizes the same type of manipulation in different contexts. He realizes the problem is not isolated. And even so, he continues trying to be fair. He keeps offering alternative explanations for behaviors he has already understood perfectly well. This is the part almost no one understands. The empath is not deceived by lack of perception. He allows himself to believe out of excess compassion. Maybe you have experienced something similar. That feeling of knowing exactly what was happening, yet still choosing to wait a little longer. Knowing the story didn't add up, but deciding to listen to one more justification. If this has happened to you, write in the comments, "I always knew." Because acknowledging this matters. The empath begins to awaken when he admits he always saw the signs, that he was not surprised, only too tolerant. This recognition does not come with shouting or scandal. It emerges as a silent clarity, almost uncomfortable, yet impossible to ignore. Jung understood that this accumulation could not last forever. No mind can archive inconsistencies endlessly without something shifting. The archive grows, the pattern repeats, the tension increases. And the more the empath realizes he was right all along, the harder it becomes to keep pretending he doesn't see. It is precisely at this point that the story begins to transform. Because when the inner archive stops being ignored and starts being recognized as truth, something inevitable approaches. It is not an immediate explosion. It is a moment of clarity so profound that it redefines everything that follows. The breaking point almost never begins with shouting. It begins with a silent discovery. A message found, a lie exposed, an inconsistency impossible to justify. It almost always comes from someone the empath protected, defended, and loved beyond reason. And that is exactly what makes the impact so profound. The pain is not only about the betrayal itself. It is the brutal realization that the signs were always there. He saw them, he felt them, he perceived them, but he chose to silence his own intuition to preserve the relationship. What breaks in that moment is not only trust in the other, it is the illusion he was sustaining. And then something happens that no one expects. There is no explosion, no scandal, no loss of control. There is silence. A silence different from all the others. It is not the silence of someone enduring. It is the silence of someone who understands. Something reorganizes internally with almost surgical clarity. Jung described this as shadow integration. Everything the empath repressed, his firmness, his boundaries, his righteous anger, his self-protection, begins to emerge. Not as revenge, but as balance. He does not become cruel. He becomes whole, and that wholeness completely changes his presence. The energy transforms first on the inside. The empath stops trying to over-explain, stops justifying behaviors he has analyzed countless times, stops offering automatic new chances. There is no dramatic speech. There is decision. And a silent decision is far more powerful than any impulsive confrontation. He begins to choose where he invests his attention. Manipulative messages no longer generate anxiety. Attempts at guilt find no more space. Emotional games that once worked easily now seem too predictable to have any effect. The manipulator senses something has changed, even without understanding exactly what. calm becomes the most frightening element of this transformation, because it is not cold indifference, it is lucidity. The empath has not lost the ability to feel. He has simply regained control over where he directs his empathy. And when that happens, the unrestricted access others once had simply ends. Shadow integration means accepting that saying no is necessary, that walking away is healthy, that not every pain of another must be absorbed. He understands that protecting his own peace is not selfishness, it is emotional maturity. And that understanding profoundly alters every dynamic around him. Relationships begin to reorganize almost immediately. People accustomed to crossing boundaries encounter clear limits. Those who manipulated through drama realize there is no longer an intense reaction to fuel the cycle. The emotional source that sustained certain behaviors is no longer available. At work, the empath stops taking on responsibilities that are not his. In the family, he stops mediating conflicts that always drained him. In romantic relationships, he no longer accepts crumbs disguised as effort. He does not need to announce his change. It is visible in his posture, in his gaze, in his quiet firmness. This transformation does not eliminate sensitivity. On the contrary, it refines it. He continues perceiving nuances, reading atmospheres, identifying inconsistencies. The difference is that now he uses this perception to decide, not to sacrifice himself. He feels everything, but consciously chooses where he remains. Perhaps the most striking moment is when he realizes he no longer needs to convince anyone of his truth. He does not need to explain why something hurts him. He does not need to argue to prove obvious inconsistencies. He simply observes, concludes, and acts according to what he knows. If you have lived something like this, that instant when calm replaced despair and you simply decided, write in the comments, "That was when I changed." Because that moment is not weakness. It is the transition between emotionally surviving and claiming sovereignty over yourself. The manipulator feels the shift as a loss of control. Old attempts to provoke reactions fail. Triggers that once worked find no echo. The empath does not respond as expected. And when there is no predictable reaction, the game loses its appeal for the one who depended on it. The result is immediate and silent. Emotional blackmail loses strength. Blame shifting stops working. Attempts to access vulnerabilities meet closed doors. Not out of coldness, but discernment. He understands that love without limits is not virtue. It is self-sabotage. And this is how the empath who once seemed fragile reveals something far more complex. He did not break. He awakened. He did not lose his heart. He gained a backbone. And when someone who always felt everything finally learns to choose, the world around realizes it was never dealing with weakness, but with contained strength. The day the empath snaps is not the day he breaks. It is the day he awakens. Everything that looked like collapse was, in truth, internal reorganization. It was not the heart that hardened, it was the consciousness that matured. And when that consciousness awakens, there is no returning to the old way of living. He does not lose the ability to love. He gains a backbone. The sensitivity is still there, intact, but now supported by clear boundaries. He does not become cold, distant, or indifferent. He becomes conscious. Conscious that empathy without direction turns into self-sabotage. Conscious that understanding without limits becomes permission for abuse. Jung would call this process individuation. The moment someone stops existing merely as emotional support for others and begins to exist as a whole being. It is not rebellion. It is not selfishness. It is integration. It is when light and shadow stop fighting and begin working together. Perhaps, if you look at your own story honestly, you may notice something uncomfortable and liberating at the same time. Maybe it was never about you being too sensitive. Maybe it was about never having learned to protect what you feel. And that realization changes the entire narrative. Because when sensitivity meets boundaries, it stops being vulnerability and becomes power. A silent power, yet impossible to manipulate. The awakened empath does not threaten anyone innocent. He simply becomes inaccessible to emotional games. And for those who depended on control, that is terrifying. If at some point you felt something inside you go silent after a great disappointment, maybe that was not the end. Maybe it was the beginning of your own integration. If this resonates with you, write here in the comments, "I awakened." Sometimes recognizing it is the first step. And if this kind of reflection helps you see your own journey more clearly, take a moment to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and turn on notifications. That way, you can continue exploring these deep transformations that almost no one takes the time to explain with true depth. In the end, the question is not whether the empath will snap. The question is whether he will allow that rupture to destroy him or awaken him. Because when he learns to use his sensitivity with boundaries, he does not become someone to be feared. He becomes whole. And someone who is whole never accepts living halfway again.